The idea of an NFT is that it's essentially like a digital signature, like a digital certificate of authenticity that defines ownership and tracks, the transfer of the creation, transfer, sale, all of that information. It goes onto the blockchain, so it's very transparent. I'm Chris Truman. I'm an artist and an NFT creator and a co-founder of Creator Ranch, and you're watching Behind the Brand with Brian Elliott.
Hey everyone, I'm Brian Elliott. Welcome to another episode of Behind the Brand. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I usually ask my guests, how did you get this job?
Well, I've been creating NFTs since 2018, so I started pretty early in the NFT scene. I'm also a physical artist, so I've been exhibiting in galleries for the last decade. So it was a unique intersection between physical art and digital art.
In this series, we like to tell origin stories, so let's take it way back in chronology to young Chris. What were you thinking about? Were you born an artist? Did you have paintbrushes in the crib? What did you want to be when you grew up?
I have been doing art since high school, at least. Maybe not as a child, but I won the High School Artist of the Year award back in, I think, my sophomore year of high school. And it just really kicked my interest into art way up. And so I decided this is what I want to do. I'm going to pursue a career in art. I'm going to go to art school and see where that takes me.
Where'd you grow up?
Up in Northern California, in Chico.
Okay, nice. And what did your parents do?
My dad was a broker at the time. My mother stayed at home, and I'm the oldest of 7, so I was a full household.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. There's a lot there to unpack, maybe. What was that like? 7 kids in the house? You're the oldest, sort of like, Yeah. Were you more like your mom or your dad?
I think a lot like my dad. Mm-hmm. It was busy. I just remember nonstop sporting events, and every weekend we were out camping or doing something active. It was a lot of fun growing up.
And when you announced that you were going to go into art, what was their reaction?
They've always been supportive, but they didn't really know how to support me. So when I got into art, they kind of followed along, but they're more adept at sports. So they knew how to be a fan in sports and go to the games. But when I started doing art, at first they didn't really know what to do, and now their house is a museum to Chris. It's pretty amazing.
Oh, that's cool. Chico, was it like Chico State?
Yeah.
So my wife's cousin went to Chico State on a soccer scholarship. It's a big soccer school, right?
Yes. Yeah, soccer, a lot of outdoor things. Yeah, it's a big, beautiful park in the area.
And what kind of early advice did they give you? Like when you said, I think art is my thing, where they're like, hey, that's nice, but you should maybe think about a plan B or get a real job at some point.
Yeah, all throughout. I think until I actually had an art career that was successful, people tended to think of me as making gift cards or something. And I think there needs to be an adjustment, where they see, oh, this is actually a viable career and people can do it and, make a living, support a family. I have 3 kids, support them on an art career.
Yeah. And then, so your other siblings are looking to you sometimes for guidance, or maybe not. Sometimes there's this opposite reaction that happens. Oh, if Chris is going this way, I'm going to go this way. At least that's what's happened with our kids. Mm-hmm. How did that play out?
We all picked our thing, and so I'm the only artist. I claimed that one early, and I apparently got all the talent in the family. So they went off in other directions.
So you talked about the importance of reinforcing. When someone has an inclination or they have a natural talent. One of my favorite TED Talks is Sir Ken Robinson talking about this idea. And I got to sit down with Ken before he passed away a number of years ago and meet him in the flesh, and we became fast friends. Kind of one of my idols. Just amazing, talking about the importance of the fact that we need scientists and mathematicians, people who write code and can do accounting and law, but also dancers and musicians and artists, and how that's equally important to all those other disciplines.
Oh, definitely, and I think even more so now. The creative output is just enormous, just in terms of entertainment and art itself, physical, contemporary art, and all the different aspects, movie making and web design and all the different functions for art these days.
Yeah. So what were some of the early signals like this could be a career for you?
I think a lot of it has to do with drive. If you're driven to do it, and I was, I've always been extremely hardworking. I set my focus on it, and I decided this is what I'm going to do for a career. And I just went out and I worked really hard, and I showed up. I think showing up is a big part of it. Go to the shows, meet the people, get your name out there. Put in the time, put in the legwork, and a lot like other businesses.
Did you have a mentor or someone that you looked up to?
Yeah, a number of mentors. I had some grad professors that really helped me out. All through my path. I went to junior college back in Chico for a couple of years and had a teacher that I looked up to that helped me out. And then a couple of teachers at San Francisco Art Institute took me under their wing. And then even after grad school, I had various artists that it kind of took me in and showed me the ropes and taught me how to navigate the art world. It's a little tricky to navigate.
Yeah. You put a timestamp on this. When were you going and finishing college?
So I finished San Francisco Art Institute in 2003. I took a couple years to travel, explore the world, and then ended up in grad school in 2008. Graduated from Claremont Graduate University in 2010. I
always like to point out that, the context and timing of things matter sometimes. 2003, for those of you who are not around, this predates the iPhone by about 4 years. This predates YouTube by about 2 or 3 years. So we're still basically toying around with BlackBerries, just coming out of the pager phase, if you know what that is. If you don't, you can Google it. Most people had a pager. And then, smartphones was basically still a boring business. In other words, people weren't taking photos or sharing pictures at all yet. And there was really no way to share art other than take a traditional photo. Although there was that little flip phone camera that was like, 480p that you could text to someone, but still very, very early. Mm-hmm. And then another significant timestamp is 2008. So you go into grad school during the Great Recession.
Yeah.
Everything goes to hell.
Yeah.
You're in school.
It was a good time to be in school, to be honest, because nobody was buying art. So even when I got out of art, we were still starting to recover. So I was in the process of building when some people were rebuilding. So the timing wasn't too bad about that.
Yeah. Fun fact about me: 2007 and a half, about November, December 2007 was my bright idea to cut the cord at a huge job at Universal Pictures with an amazing salary, a team, car allowance, people picking up my dry cleaning, all the accoutrements. Yeah. And I decided, I think I'm going to do my startup now. Yeah. Right, basically headed into, if you saw the movie Perfect Storm, that wave was like my boat. And I was just like, I'm doing my startup now, 2008, woo, let's go.
Yeah.
Rude awakening.
Yeah. Throw some cold water on that one.
Yeah, although it did work out, and we can talk about that. But okay, so you're in grad school, and then you finish. So talk to me more about the signals. And the reason I ask that is because young people with a lot of experience, they can be good or not so good at reading the signals. And these signals can be subtle or overt. Sometimes, like no one's buying your art, and you're like, could be the wrong audience, or maybe my art's not as good as I think it is, right? So talk about the signals, how you knew.
I was very fortunate because I met some great people out of undergrad, and they purchased my work back then, and they continued to support me.
Okay, so people are buying your stuff.
Yeah, in fact, my grad school was paid for by a collector, and they said, if you'd like to go to grad school, you can get in and we'll pick up the tab.
Okay, so this is, I've done a lot of stuff with the Shark Tank guys. This is the equivalent of saying, great idea, but what are your sales like? And you're saying, well, I got my school funded and people are already buying I have sales and I'm still, wet behind the ears. I'm still, this is a good sign.
Yeah, there's some reinforcement there. It helps you believe in yourself. Especially as an artist, there are ebbs and flows, especially right out of grad school.
And how old were you?
Let's see, I was in my 30s by that point. I was early 30s. Okay. I thought, okay, I'm fresh out of grad school. This is my opportunity. I've got a couple of years to get my act together and go. I was recently married. I thought, well, I'm not sure the wife will put up with this forever. But I started to get some positive feedback and was able to capitalize on that.
And so how did you make ends meet in between? Were you selling art here and there? Were you bussing tables?
Yeah, no, I was selling art. I've done some teaching. In fact, I still teach one class, but subsidized a little bit with teaching. But for the most part, since grad school, it's gotten better and better. But I've made a career out of, or an income from selling my artwork.
And was it primarily through galleries?
Not at first, but yeah, I started to get picked up by galleries, and now I work with about 8 galleries, and so yeah, the sales all go through galleries.
At first, was it just like commission based, like someone would see and go, "I would like you to paint for my home," or?
Yeah, definitely. Or you'd get put into a show, and it wasn't you weren't represented by the gallery, but you'd have a piece in a group show, and they'd be able to sell it, and so you kind of cobble together at first, and then it starts to take off, and then there's some consistency behind it. So sale pops up here and here and here, and so it kind of comes from different angles.
Yeah, and so I'm doing this to build the arc, because I feel like you started at the grassroots level when there was no technology, and that now you come up and you remember what it was like not to have internet, basically, or a dial-up connection.
Well, even in undergrad, I actually switched my major to a double major of painting and digital media. So that was back in, like I said, 2003, and it was really rudimentary. We had a digital room that was filled with all those iMacs with the colored cases, and not really any output. You really couldn't do anything with the art that you made. They didn't really have great projection. You could show your projects on a screen, on the small screens.
That actually is an important year for the Apple, because I think that was the first year that iMovie came out.
Yeah.
And before that it was other programs like Quark Express and rudimentary, like.
Yeah, and we were playing with Max MSP. I don't know if you've heard of that, but kind of a visual programming language, and trying to control video with sensors, and there's a lot of fun things that we were doing.
A mouse that was still connected by a cord.
Oh yeah, yeah.
One button, click, click.
Yeah. Good old days.
Yeah, it was. We ran into some technical issues. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, I would think so. And now let's sort of bring it forward, which is. Now you are innovating, you're a traditional painter, you're an artist, and now you're thinking about how to distribute or make it more widely available, accepted.
Yeah. Well, the promise of NFTs, which I just glommed onto, I thought was fantastic, was this idea that as a creator, you could be fairly compensated for your digital assets, for your creations. Yeah. And I thought of that as a really broad and open idea, and but then I got into the NFT space, and I found out that I had access because I was getting onto these curated platforms, but either through tech barriers or through financial barriers, it costs gas to mint, or other barriers. A lot of my peers couldn't get on and make anything. So I thought this was a really interesting time that we could solve some of these issues.
Okay, so let's baby step this. Okay, so. For those who are not familiar with how NFTs work or what they're good for, let's sort of define what an NFT is. Now, my understanding is, as I understand it, one of the key things is it's trackable back to the blockchain. Mm-hmm. And the way that we are thinking about NFTs today are probably not the way it will be in 5 or 10 years. In other words, your passport may be turned into an NFT, or your driver's license, your ID. Because it's hard to counterfeit, and it's back to the blockchain, and we know who the original owner is.
Yeah, definitely.
How would you define what NFTs are?
So the idea of an NFT is that it's essentially like a digital signature, like a digital certificate of authenticity that defines ownership and tracks, the transfer of the creation, transfer, sale, all of that information. It goes onto the blockchain, so it's very transparent. Which also makes it very difficult to counterfeit. It stands for non-fungible token, so that's where the NFT comes from. Before, what would happen is if I had a picture, a JPEG, and I sent it to you, now we both have the JPEG. And after NFTs, we can say, well, you still have an image of it and I have an image of it, but I have the NFT that defines the ownership and authenticity of that particular digital asset.
Yep. I love this idea because, Chris, you will not believe how many people rip off my videos.
Yeah.
True story. Like, I'll post it to YouTube and then I will see it on TikTok with in fact, funny story. So my phone starts blowing up one day. Everyone was like, congratulations, your video's going viral. What's going on? I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And they're like, it's on TikTok. I was like, wait, come again? I'm just sort of playing with TikTok right now, watching and waiting and observing, but I was not, fully into it. And yet I had this video going viral on TikTok.
Yeah.
Turns out someone ripped it from the internet, reposted it to TikTok, and got like 5 million views.
Yeah.
And I was like,
well, and in that circumstance, it's possible that they're monetizing your content.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was so pissed. But NFTs could be, an NFT platform could be an answer to something like this in the future.
Oh, definitely. I mean, let's say you commit something to the blockchain. We call that minting. You mint something, then you have a timestamp. This is my creation. This is my digital signature. I'm the creator of this. It's traceable back to you, your wallet. And that way, in the future, if somebody questions the authenticity or the origin of something, you can say, no, here it is. So this is what I minted back in, 2021.
Yeah, I look forward to the day when YouTube and Instagram and it's all trackable so that the artist, the original creator, gets the credit. Yep. That's amazing. And these are not just limited to photographs or videos. We're talking about music.
Everything.
Anything.
In the near future, we're going to be, you'll have a concert ticket and you'll go to the concert and halfway through the concert you'll have to leave and you'll put it up on some marketplace and somebody will buy it and enter with the rest of your ticket.
Yeah.
There will be all of these amazing options that'll happen.
Yeah, in fact, our friend Gary Vaynerchuk just launched this thing called VFriends, and he's tokenizing event tickets, restaurant reservations, the whole thing. And so I think he also has a vision for this.
I'm a big fan of Gary Vee. I've been watching him since the Wine Library TV videos way back in the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's tokenized. I heard an expression that I really glommed onto, and it's tokenized tribalism, and it's this idea that you buy into a group in an identity, whether it's Bored Apes or Gutter Cats or a lot of the PFP projects. And then that becomes your access point, and you can do social events. You have access to conferences or clubs or concerts or different venues.
Yeah, it's almost like a new spin on membership.
Yeah.
Or subscription model.
Yep.
Just with a lot more safety and encryption and reliability and.
Definitely, and the communities are really wild. They're fantastic. I'm a member of a few of those. And they have these Discord channels that are running 24 hours a day. Mm-hmm. So your cohort, your group of fellow participants are, anytime you log into Discord, they're talking about something.
Yeah. So you're the artist in this equation of two other partners, and you've come up with this new platform, which is really an app, the first of its kind.
Yes.
Tell everyone what it's about and break it down.
So it was actually really fortunate that I had known Michael for a number of years, Michael Zadikian, the CEO, over Art and Wine. And
Michael's an investor, kind of a Silicon Valley legend.
Yeah, yes, and a tech veteran. So we got to talking about NFTs, and I knew a lot about the various platforms and about NFTs in general. And about the art world, what the art world needs, what artists are looking for. And then he had a vast resource of tech knowledge and actually specific technology that we could use to create this app. So we were able to take years worth of behind the scenes work and plug it into this app, which allowed us to move fairly quickly. Mm-hmm.
And so what does the app do? Why is it special?
So the app is special because it fulfills 4 requirements that I was looking for. It is open. There's no gatekeeping. Anybody can get on there and create something. There's not a financial barrier. So there's no gas prices. We're on the Tezos blockchain, so that means that it is environmentally friendly. The electricity usage is minuscule compared to what ETH is, and which is a barrier for other reasons. It's free to use. It's easy. There are no tech barriers, so you don't have to have a wallet, you don't have to have crypto, you don't have to be able to navigate these extremely dense and complex things to be able to set up a profile. It's familiar if you've used Instagram. It's as easy as using that.
Yeah, and so just to back up a little bit, for people who don't know or are new to kind of all this like I am, I mean, I'm watching the space very carefully, but I am not playing with cryptocurrency yet. I'm just not. I mean, I want to. I've had the OG of cryptocurrency, Mike Novogratz, on, who's made countless billions, I think, in various cryptocurrencies. He's really the OG. Took me to school on it and got me very much hooked and like resolved to jump into it when I'm ready. But it's so fast moving that I'm scared
Oh, yeah.
to lose my shirt. Anyway, I'm watching it very carefully, but I know just enough to be dangerous. So the thing I know about NFTs is you've got to have skin in the game to play, but now you guys are changing that because
Yes.
not only is it sort of leveling the playing field for the average person, but it's also on mobile, and that's new.
Yeah.
So on an iPhone or on an Android, you can log into this app. You don't have to have a crypto wallet. You can be a customer. You can buy, or you can be an artist and you can mint and participate.
Yes.
And buy and sell your stuff.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it really is. We're hiding a lot of things under the hood, which is why it's so easy. There's a lot of really difficult technology to deal with.
Yeah, and we should probably point out too, so if you do have cryptocurrency and that's like your jam, just because it's not required doesn't mean you can't use it. You
Yes.
can use it, you can bank it, it all goes into your wallet seamlessly. That's what you're talking about, kind of stuff under the hood.
Yes. So we're about to release Tezos wallets and Tezos purchases natively in the app. So at the moment, we started off with credit cards and a communal wallet, so that all the users that have been sitting on the sidelines can get in.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to build out the features for the existing crypto audience, because we definitely want to make sure that if anybody wants to export to a wallet and they can hold it themselves, they don't plan on transacting or putting it back into the marketplace, that they can do that.
Yeah. The other part that when I was reading the description and doing a little deeper dive, I love the aspect of the gallery being rewarded, because the gallery sometimes is the middleman, right?
Yeah.
And the artist, you think about wanting to sell directly, but also you do sort of want to have a presence in a gallery because the gallery curates the right audience. Talk about that.
Absolutely. Well, so as a physical artist, that's where I make my living. I've been selling work through galleries for the better part of a decade, and so I realized I got a bunch of calls back in March, and they said, Chris, where do we sit in this? How do we have a place? Is it
Cutting us out of the equation.
Yeah, is it just for artists, or do we have a place in this economy? And I said, well, I hope you have a place in this economy. I'd like to see one. And so what we realized is that we need a way to compensate business partners, and it could be galleries, it could be curators, it could be managers, for music, it could be any partner that is willing to help you sell, can split the primary contract, the primary sale, and it automatically pays out. So anybody who's experienced waiting for payment to come in, as many artists have, it's instantaneously. Both parties are paid out.
And how does the commission structure work, or the revenue split work?
So in terms of Creator Ranch, we take 2.5%, which is the lowest of the industry, and which is that's a very minuscule part of it.
So suppose that I'm a gallery and I've got an email list and I blast it out to all my fans and all my loyal patrons that I've been working with for a decade. Yeah. And now I say, I got this hot new artist, Chris, and I want you all to check him out. How does the gallery and Chris work out a revenue split?
Well, with galleries, the traditional revenue split is a 50-50. That's kind of industry standard. But the way that we set it up is that it can go up to 50. We don't want the artist getting soaked and giving 75%.
So it's not negotiable.
It's you can set it from 0 to 50 in terms of the split.
And who sets it?
The artist sets it.
Okay.
We want to make sure that it's not a curator saying, hey, I select this piece that I'm going to curate. So the artist will, and it's piece by piece, so you would select a piece, and then you select a curator for that particular piece, and then when it sells, the revenue splits automatically.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so
That seems really fair.
it brings a lot of people in that haven't been able to enter into the system. I personally, I have an NFT that I had in a show at Winston Walker Gallery in Seattle. That was it was my first NFT that was shown alongside my paintings, so it was a big moment for me. And you know, I wanted just to be able to work it out like a regular piece of art. You know, they have a part in it. They're bringing buyers to see it. They're having conversations with collectors, and they should be compensated as well.
I love this because it does several things at once. It's, you know, it sort of does, at least, you know, in these early adopter phases, art seems to be the first iteration. It's going to completely break open, but like, this is kind of like what Tiger Woods did for golf, right? Like, made it approachable for everyone to get on the golf course, pick up a club. It levels the playing field. It makes it fair. It's all trackable. It's on the blockchain. How about for someone like me who has videos? Should I start playing with the app? Should I start
Absolutely.
minting some of my?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and we're really looking forward to, you know, when we have all different types of people that are minting things. You curate your own feed on this. You know, we're not doing a top-down curation. We're not doing drops in the traditional sense.
How about in terms of like storage? You know, because maybe a piece of art takes up this much space, but my video, how does that work?
So at the moment we have a 100 megabyte limit on the content, so it would need to fit to that. I'm sure that will grow as we grow.
100 megabytes for videos, like
that's goes quickly. Yeah. And it's all stored on IPFS, which is a distributed file system. So let's say you know, several of the servers go down. There are other servers that have enough of the data to be able to reconstruct the media for you.
So when you say 100 megabytes, that makes me think about photos too, because a resed up photo, something that you send to a magazine for, you know, a cover, that's way bigger than 100 megabytes. So does the resolution not matter then?
No, so I've tested it out, and you can get around 10,000 pixel size, you know, in a rectangular format for about 100 megabytes.
And how are you then digitizing your works of art are pretty big sometimes. Are you taking a photograph and digitizing it? How does that work?
Well, I have an interesting process where I'm creating them partly digitally and then partly in analog. So I start digitally, you know, you burn it onto a silk screen. Then I work on top of the silk screen with, you know, paints and spray paint, and then I scan it back in.
Oh, that's cool.
And the scan is, some of these scans are enormous. They're 2 gigabytes, and they're enormous scans. And so at the moment, I'm scaling down for NFTs, and then I just keep a super high res copy of it.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, and I'm sure in the future, you know, just like I think my original computer had like, what was it? The Commodore 64 had like 64 megs of RAM, right?
Yeah, and I just maxed out 3 terabytes. Yeah.
Yeah. Relatable. I have like hundreds of terabytes back at the office of all this video storage. Okay, interesting. And so, what advice then do you have for artists, budding artists, or people who, you know, are out there doing their thing? What should they do today?
Well, I think one of the misconceptions that a lot of artists have is that their real world career, you know, their status will carry over, and this is a new terrain. You know, so the digital space has established artists and has people that have been in the space for a long time and really built a following and built a career.
Yeah, name a couple of them just so we have a reference.
Xcopy, Beeple, you know, some of the big launches that we're seeing on Sotheby's and you know, Christie's.
So do you think that like the Beeple one is just so prolific? I mean, do you think these are anomalies, like just capturing, you know, sort of the first mover advantage? I mean, what was it? 64, how many millions of dollars was it?
69 million.
69 million. Yeah. I mean, you know, it was 13 years of his work.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, I'm sure it's worth every penny, but is it an anomaly? Is that?
Well, you know, I think it'll take some time to level out. And I think what will happen is, just like the traditional art world, we'll figure out who the major characters are, and those people will have their places in the institutions and the museums and the collections. At the moment, we're seeing a lot of firsts. A lot of people that are coming into the space, and something looks good, and they're getting a lot of attention. So we'll see how that works out over time. But in general too, I just think the digital space and the NFT space is in its infancy. It's so small right now, and I can just see it 10 times this size in 5 years.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're just at the very beginning. So as an artist, do you see the value in creating the physical space as well as the digital? And do you ever think about packaging those together? I'm just thinking about the marketing of it now, like, selling it as a package or selling them independently. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Different people are trying out different things. There's a lot of experimentation. I've recently created what I call hybrid pieces, which are, I do an aluminum dye sublimation print of an NFT, and then I paint a little bit on top of that. So it ends up adding a layer of, actual painting to it. But they're based off an NFT that I've created digitally.
Yeah, but I guess I'm just thinking about how price is determined. A lot of it's determined on what the market will bear, right? Yeah. It's on the reputation of the artist. And it's also on the scarcity of the piece. So one of one is much better than one of 100 or one of 1,000. Yeah. But I guess when you think about it, the NFT is a one of one.
Well, okay, so one of the things that I've looked at recently is if there's not enough circulation, then let's say, my one of one that I first originally minted, it never came back out, and it's never resold. So it was put in a collection, and it stays in that collection, and there's no circulation. So if you are only doing those and you're doing a very limited quantity, you might not get the circulation that you need in order to build a digital career, because there needs to be transacting, there needs to be further reposting and posting.
So Brian owns a piece of Chris's art, and then Brian sells it to Corey, and then Corey sells it to Eddie, and
Yeah, and each step of the way, the artist maintains a royalty, which is a really interesting concept with NFTs. Yeah.
So do you think that there's something like, as a consumer, what are we calling the consumer? So we have curators, we have...
We're calling them collectors.
Collectors, okay. So is there something, like, we're in this beautiful home in Beverly Hills, thanks to our friend Aaron Kerman, but is there something about keeping the art for a period of time, like a stock or like a piece of real estate, or is it better to flip it, and how does that work?
Well, I think that there are all different types. There are flippers in the real world, and there are flippers in the digital world, and then there are collectors. They tend to buy things and they hold.
Yeah, it speaks to them. They're like,
yeah.
I want to keep this forever. I'm never letting it go.
Yeah, and I've bought some really interesting things. I also collect NFTs, and I'm waiting. I'm looking at screens. Screens are being developed really quickly now. Samsung frame and all the different types, and a lot of NFTs are square. So I'm looking for a really cool square screen so I could display my NFTs. So I don't intend to sell it. I intend to display it. But the nice thing is I can display one for a month, and then I'm going to have a party. I can put something else on. Yeah. So I think that's going to be a common thing with people, as a screen in their homes.
And so if I'm a collector, how should I be, and if I'm new to the space and I don't know all the players and I can't afford a Beeple, or a Chris Truman piece, how do I know what to buy?
Well, I think there are people that are buying for investment, and in that case, you definitely need to do your research. And then there are people that are buying for the love of it, and I think there are so many fantastic artists that are very inexpensive, underpricing their work, and I think that you can pick those up for relatively cheaply, and then a lot of times, as they gain notoriety and experience, their prices go up significantly.
Yeah. So I guess everything and nothing has changed. It's still in the eye, beauty or value is in the eye of the beholder.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's amazing. Okay, let's impart some final words of advice for artists, and let's extend the word artist to people who are also filmmakers or writers, or they're an attorney, or she's like going to be the VP of the company. Her work is her art.
Yeah, I think this is really an exciting thing for me is that from the physical art world, there was a limited set of people that could afford to buy my work. And NFTs broke that open. And so I've been able to sell internationally. I've been able to sell to a much younger audience. I've been able to build relations with all these different people in different levels and categories.
Yeah, it breaks down geography too.
Oh, completely. And you know, people might say, "Oh, I would love this painting, but I kind of want to see it before I ship it over to Europe." Whereas, you know, what you see is what you get with an NFT. So I think it's broken down a lot of barriers.
And the knockoffs too, right? Like how do you know if it's a real Monet or?
Oh yeah, definitely. And you know, there's a thing called copy minting in NFTs that happens, and you know, usually they're caught fairly quickly, but sometimes they take advantage of people.
Let me ask what mistakes you've made to get to this point. What did you get wrong in order to get it right?
You know, I fell through a lot of the tripwires, you know, which is good. It actually helped me, you know, when making this platform. I was able to take a lot of that knowledge and say, well, we definitely don't want this, and we don't want this.
And what is that?
Well, one thing is gas. Gas has been a major issue with Ethereum. And I remember back in June, I went to mint a piece on one of the platforms, and all of a sudden gas spiked, and it was $1,000.
So what, for people who don't know what that is, what are we talking about here?
So what happens is that when there's high traffic times in Ethereum, which is the most popular blockchain at the moment, then you have to pay the miners for a fee to be able to process your blockchain interaction. And the pricing is all based on traffic. So as traffic goes up, you pay more to have your processes take place.
Like an Uber ride when it's a peak time.
Yeah, and it was super peak.
Yeah.
So I learned that was prohibitive. That especially if somebody's making something, they're just getting started. You know, they want to price something at $300 and gas is $1,000. You know, that's prohibitive. They can't get in it.
Well, and someone can game that system too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We see it at the gas pump in real life.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So that was trying to figure out a way to have gas play a much less have less of an impact on the whole process was a big deal for us.
And how did you solve it? Did you just absorb the cost, or?
Well, Tezos, we found Tezos, and I started exploring that as a blockchain, and it's been established for a long time, and it's been used for a lot of art purposes and smart contracts, and it's called proof of stake. It was the type of blockchain, and so minting is like a quarter, and so we just decided, you know what, let's just eat it on the minting. We're covering the minting for our platform, and that way people don't have that barrier.
Yeah. Anything else that you tripped over?
I think that at first I wasn't spending enough time with the communities, and community is huge in the NFT world. You know, I wasn't spending time on Discord. I wasn't going out on Twitter, and so some people have a tendency to think, well, I'm going to put it out there and it's just going to sell. And that just doesn't happen. So I started focusing on the communities. I started spending more time communicating with people, and that's really when things get really interesting, because then they start to promote your work and share it with their friends, and vice versa. You know, you're in a community.
I love that, because the naysayers about how technology is dividing us and creating more problems, and you know, in some regards that there is some truth to that, but at the same time, it's the same old fundamentals of building relationships, person to person, or being involved in a community, giving back, listening, being involved, engaging.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've spent many late nights talking about fish, you know, cartoon fish, and it's, you know, I think it's really amazing. I don't know some of these artists that I've invited to our platform. I don't know where they live geographically, and I found out that Brazil and Ukraine and Russia and all over the place, and it becomes really interesting because we're engaged in the same communities, and it's breaking down these barriers.
So cool. Final word of advice for artists.
It's just like anything. Get yourself out there. You know, share your work. You know, you're making something that is made to be seen, and this is a way to far more people will see your work digitally than will ever see it in life.
And if you're afraid because your parents say you'll be a starving artist?
Well, there's so many more options now. You know, if I grew up in the Instagram and the social media age, you know, I would have had a much easier time in marketing my work, you know, early on. And now there's so many tools that are available. It's really remarkable.
I mean, we were just sitting back, you know, chopping it up, reminiscing about the good old days and all that. You know, tracking my roots, where I came from. And